So today we will continue the second part of the connectivity webinars. If you haven't attended the first part, I put the link in the chat. So in the first webinar, I talked about the basic things that you actually need to know regarding Bluetooth and hearing aids so we can use this knowledge to see how connectivity works. And now, with the second part, we will explore what happens when it doesn't work. That's why today we'll focus on common connectivity issues and how to solve them. So just an important reminder for future webinars, make sure that you register because that way I have your email address. So even if you cannot attend today's session live, I will still send the link to the recording and the handouts later on. So on behalf of the Philips team, I'm Marielle, and with me today is Christina, who will help me spice up today's training session by showing you all the sexy solutions we have to your most common connectivity issues. So there you see Christina. And today's agenda, I will start off by reviewing the most relevant Bluetooth protocols for Philips HearLink and what purpose they serve within the SoundTie universe. I'll also be discussing why users experience connectivity problems to give you more awareness of how different things can affect connectivity. And after this, Christina will dive into the most common connectivity problems that you will most likely encounter in your clinic, such as disconnections and also pairing issues. And finally, she will give you general tips and tricks to reduce these problems as much as possible. So now let's review which Bluetooth protocols are used in our Philips HearLink portfolio. We have the generic Bluetooth wireless technology that you see on the left-hand side of your screen, and that is divided into Bluetooth Classic and Bluetooth Low Energy. So Bluetooth Classic is a closed protocol that cannot be modified, and the Bluetooth Low Energy is an open protocol, which means that any manufacturers of Bluetooth devices have the option to make changes or modifications to this protocol specific to the requirements of their own devices. So in total, we have 6 different Bluetooth low energy protocols used across Philips hearing aids and connectivity accessories, all with their own function. The original Bluetooth Low Energy protocol can only transmit data, meaning there is no audio transmission. And the next 5 protocols is based on this original Bluetooth Low Energy protocol, and all 5 enables audio streaming. The second one is Bluetooth LE audio. So this protocol was specifically designed for hands-free audio in Android devices, in addition to enabling Auracast broadcast audio. Next, we also have the Philips Bluetooth Low Energy protocol, which was modified specifically by Philips for our own accessories. And we also have the Apple version of Bluetooth Low Energy, referred to as Apple Direct Streaming, and Apple Bidirectional Streaming. And finally, the last Bluetooth Low Energy protocol that is relevant for you to know is Android Bluetooth Audio Streaming for Hearing Aids, or ASHA. And this allows one-way streaming to audio Android devices. So Philips uses the original Bluetooth Low Energy protocol for sending data between Philips hearing aids and the remote control, the Philips HearLink 2 app, and of course, don't forget NoaLink Wireless. That includes the newer version of NoaLink. And the Philips Bluetooth Low Energy Protocol allows audio streaming from devices such as the audio clip and TV adapter to the Philips hearing aids. It is very important to note that the audio clip, in addition to Bluetooth Low Energy, also has Bluetooth Classic for connecting to devices without Bluetooth Low Energy. That's why it can also be used as an intermediary device that enables two-way audio streaming both with iPhone and Android devices. Apple Direct and bidirectional streaming allows audio streaming from Apple devices to Philips hearing aids. And since last year, it now includes streaming from a Mac computer. Asha and LE Audio allows audio streaming from Android devices to Philips hearing aids. Asha supports one-way streaming, and LE Audio supports two-way or bidirectional streaming. So together, all of these different Bluetooth low energy protocols, along with Bluetooth Classic, ensure that users have access to high quality sound from a variety of different devices. Now let's dive into the main reasons why the users still experience Bluetooth connectivity problems. Of course, connectivity issues are not only specific to hearing aid users. We all use a number of devices that connect to each other using Bluetooth technology, from our computer mouse and keyboard to our PC headsets and, of course, our earphones. And I want you to think about how many times your Bluetooth mouse has stopped working all of a sudden, or how many times you had to repair your earphones to the computer or your smartphone. That is why using Bluetooth technology is actually an active process, which requires participation from the user. It is not a set it once and then forget it process, and sometimes you have to reestablish pairing and connection. And by understanding the most common factors that can influence how well this type of technology works, both you and also your client can be better prepared for overcoming these challenges. There are many reasons for connectivity problems, and here are a few of the most common ones. Bluetooth uses the 2.4 gigahertz frequency band. Remember that? So most of the devices using Bluetooth use the specific frequency band. Bluetooth actually needs a clear line of sight for the best transmission of information. The hearing aid needs to be within range of the device, typically within 10 meters or 30 feet. Bluetooth hops between different frequencies. And the pairing process is actually more complex than you think. So for hearing aids, it is generally more complex compared to normal streaming, let's say to headphones, for example. So to show you an example of how complex it can be with hearing aids, Philips hearing aids use the Bluetooth ASHA protocol for streaming one-way audio, and then the Philips Bluetooth Low Energy protocol to watch TV and connect to the TV adapter. Then you have the standard Bluetooth Low Energy to connect to the Philips HearLink 2 app. So to add to that, you have near field magnetic induction to make sure that the two hearing aids are synchronized in terms of volume and program. And all of this is not happening for a normal headphone. It's not as complex. It does not need 4 or 5 different Bluetooth protocols to work. And usually there's only one. So now let's look at each of these issues more in detail. First, The 2.4 gigahertz frequency band is part of the industrial, scientific, and medical, or ISM zone, of the radio frequency spectrum. So the 2.4 gigahertz ISM radio band is a range of frequencies starting from 2.4 gigahertz and ending at 2.483 gigahertz. So it's within this range that Bluetooth works. And FCC licensing from the Federal Communication Commission from the US is also not required to operate in this band. So it is full of other devices, including Wi-Fi, microwaves, security cameras, baby monitors, garage door openers, and much more. This means that the interference from any of these other sources can lead to a very poor connection between the user's hearing aids and the smartphone. The Bluetooth range is also affected by obstacles, including walls, floors, humidity, precipitation, and people, of course, because the human body is one of the most difficult obstacles as we are mostly made up of water, and water is a super absorber of the Bluetooth signal. Number one enemy. Think about when you are trying to hear someone in the next room, and the volume and clarity will be different depending on whether the wall is made of wood or concrete. And the same thing is happening to the Bluetooth signal. And finally, it's important for you to realize that Bluetooth works best indoors, inside a room, so that the Bluetooth signal can then reflect and amplify because there are more reflective surfaces. When you are outdoors, there is a lack of these reflecting objects, which is why there are more issues with the quality of the connectivity of the Bluetooth signal. So one of the most difficult scenarios for keeping a stable connection is if the user walks in and out of range of the connected device, causing reconnections. The reconnection process is complicated and can fail, which leads to disconnection. Hearing aid users are at a greater risk of walking away from their phone than a headphone users, if you think about it. Because typically, when a headphone user walks away from their connected phone, they take off the headphones and reconnect when they need to use them again. But a hearing aid user is not going to take off their hearing aids when they are done streaming from their phone. So that's why they often notice this problem more often. And part of what makes Bluetooth strong can also be its weakness by interfering with the signal. Bluetooth uses adaptive frequency hopping to overcome this interference. So the primary device, in our case, a smartphone, will maintain a channel map that classifies how well each channel is functioning and shares this map with the secondary device, in our case, a hearing aid. So the channel map is continuously updated, and the Bluetooth signal will then hop or change frequencies if it encounters interference in a specific channel, maybe from a Wi-Fi signal or other devices. That's why when the signal hops, it may then make the audio choppy or even interrupt the signal completely. Running multiple simultaneous Bluetooth protocols can also result in protocol collisions, causing frequent disconnections. And this Bluetooth hopping is the reason why. So the Bluetooth pairing process is actually very complex and can be disrupted if there is corruption of any data packet exchanged during the process. So if this happens, the pairing process, or the handshake, as we call it, has to start over, and it slows down the pairing process. Devices that are already paired may also interfere with the pairing process of a new device. So for example, it is possible that a paired headset may interfere with the pairing of a car stereo or vice versa. So to reduce pairing complexity on Android, we really recommend that you pair through the HearLink 2 app. We are currently working closely with Google and Apple to improve the pairing process, the connectivity quality, and general accessibility to Android and Apple devices. So now I want to hand it over to Christina, and she will talk about the important connectivity issues that we encounter and how to troubleshoot it step by step.
Thank you very much, Marielle, for the introduction. I hope you can hear me well. So we have seen that this Bluetooth and connectivity is very, very complex, and so many things can go wrong because there are so many different possible resources of interference that, yes, Bluetooth is and remains a tricky part. So what I would like to show you now is how we can actually troubleshoot. What are the menus in iPhone and in Android phones, which we can verify, which we can use, the options we can look at to solve some of these issues. So now we will be going through the different menus and see. There will be lots of information for you, and you cannot recall everything, but be reminded that everything will be recorded, and you will also get the presentation as a PDF. So once, if you have a case we are talking about today, it will be very easy for you just, to go back to the webinar and grab the information which you need. So just think about, what connectivity problems you have experienced with your phone, or what are the connectivity problems your customer have reported to you. I'm sure everybody has had some issues. Maybe you had some issues when we were trying out, but also think about it. How did you manage to fix it? So it's possible, if you would like to write something in the chat, you can write some questions or some points in the chat, and later we can discuss it. But I'm very, very certain of all the 24 participants we are today, probably everybody of you has had some disconnection or some issues with the iPhone or the Android phone. So today, there are more than 6 billion smartphone users worldwide, meaning that more than 85% of the world's population are using a smartphone. Bluetooth connectivity issues are unfortunately quite common due all to these various factors Mariel talked about before. Specific statistics on the number of people experience Bluetooth connectivity problems are not easily available, but it is confirmed that these issues are a widespread concern with the increasing number of Bluetooth-enabled devices which are used worldwide. The likelihood of encountering connectivity problems also arise. So yes, hearing users, they love to use the smartphone. They love to use, they make direct calls. They love to listen to music, and therefore also hearing aid users are part of this group issuing or experiencing connectivity problems. Well, the recent Mark Track 11 survey, which is a large study, it has been conducted in the United States in 2022, showed actually that 91% of people with a hearing aid own a smartphone, and that many people with a hearing aid, they actually want to use their smartphone, and they may be encountered with these connectivity issues. So how do we start troubleshooting? You get then a phone call by a customer, he's very upset, things don't work. So let's have a look at the Apple iPhone hearing devices, and then also at some Android phones. We use one particular Android, and of course the menus, they may look a bit different depending on the Android manufacturer. So let's start with the overview of the Apple, of the iOS hearing device menu. So for iOS, the hearing device menu is located at Settings, Accessibility, Hearing Devices. And I'm sure you know this is where the user will pair the hearing aid to their iPhone or iPad, and where they can also make adjustments. So MFI devices, correct? This is where the hearing aid user will pair their iPhone. And then below we find the menu Play Ringtones. This is the menu where the user actually can hear the ringtones of his phone in the hearing aids. And then we do also have play system sounds. So in addition to the sound of the hearing instruments, the hearing aid user, he can also get a notification from their iPhone directly to the hearing instruments, you know, like text message or other notifications. And then the next would be the menu of audio routing. So in this menu, it's actually a very interesting menu. In this menu, the hearing aid user selects where the audio of the phone is directed to. We will have a deeper dive into this menu a bit later. Then another menu which we'll find is actually the control nearby devices and the audio hands-off. So these two options are for controlling the hearing aids which are actually connected to other Apple devices. So maybe iPads, and because also these other devices can be managed with the iPhone, and they also can have influence on connectivity issues. How do this connection menu look in Android phones? So in an Android phone, the hearing aid menu is located at Settings and Connected Devices. Excuse me. All right. Let me see, my mouse doesn't. Oh, okay, now here we go. All right. So in Android phones, you will see that the media devices here connected. So this is where the user will see their paired hearing aids and can turn them off if he does not want to have that the hearing instruments are streaming. And then next, he will have saved devices. So here the hearing aid user will see all the devices which are connected to the Android phone. Next is also connection preferences. In this menu, the hearing aid user can set their preferences for different wireless protocols, including Bluetooth. Now, one of the top connectivity issues we are always hearing, and probably which also you have been confronted with. So one of the most common issues is hearing aid disconnections, including maybe one hearing aid disconnects, both hearing aid disconnects. This is one of the top issues we are experiencing. Then second is connectivity issues with multiple devices. you have connected your hearing instruments to your iPhone or to your iPod, and whenever you want to use your iPod or your phone, the instrument does not connect to the device which you need, but to the other device. And then also the audio routing issues. So although you think the hearing instruments are connected, your phone rings and you don't hear the sound in the hearing instruments. So this is certainly an issue of a wrong routing. And also what we have heard quite frequently, that the phone call volume is too low. There we have various troubleshooting, but it's also, yes, a very, very common issue. So these are the four main issues we would like to look at now again in iPhones and in Android smartphones. So again, how many times have we heard these complaints? My hearing aids don't connect to my phone. My hearing aids keep losing connection, only on the right or the left instrument connects. So hearing aid connections are a very common issue. Hearing aid users may experience issues when connecting their hearing aids to their devices. Their hearing aid may connect from their devices temporarily, or only one hearing aid may connect to the devices. Now let's have a look which are the first steps which we can take or which we should look at to solve this issue. So in iPhone, in iOS, actually the first step which you can do is always toggle off Bluetooth, switch it on and switch it off. If this option does not work, then you should try to restart the hearing instruments to force the reconnection. How do you restart your hearing instruments? Very simple to say, but how do we actually restart the instruments? If the hearing aid user is wearing a pair of rechargeable hearing aids, then they can be turned off by holding the lower push button for instruments HearLink 40 and earlier, or the single push button for HearLink 50. So these push buttons are held down on the hearing instruments for 3 seconds. Then we wait a second, and then we hold the same push button again for 2 seconds to turn the instruments on again. If you have rechargeable hearing instruments, of course, the easiest is to insert them quickly into the charger and take them out again. And just to remind you, if the hearing aid user has traditional disposable batteries, then you just open the battery door and close it, and this way the instruments are also reset. Very important as well, if there are connection issues, we should check if the hearing instruments are maybe still paired to other devices like iPad or Mac. So it's important that we also check if the instrument is connected to another device. And this you can also do again under settings, Bluetooth, and then you will see all the other devices which have been connected. So make sure again in settings, Bluetooth on the device you are not using, on the iPad, that you can switch off the hearing instrument, disconnect them, and make sure that the instruments are only connected to your iPhone. Then actually the connection will work again. Now, if the main steps in iPhone, iOS have failed, there are some other options we can try out. One of the options would be to reboot the phone, maybe switch off the phone completely and switch it on again. This way also all the connections will be eliminated, and then you can connect again the hearing instrument. So which means in the second part, after having switched on the hearing, the iPhone or the smartphone again, you can repair the hearing instrument. So to unpair them, we know, go again to accessibility, hearing devices, my hearing devices, and then you will see that the hearing devices are still connected. Then you can select forget this device. By forgetting this device, the Bluetooth connection will actually be interrupted, and then you can repair the hearing instruments again. Some additional steps if the connection with the Android phone doesn't work is actually, yes, also to toggle off Bluetooth on and off again. So this you would do in this menu, in the Bluetooth menu. And then you can actually reconnect through the Bluetooth menu. So just, tapping on the instruments which you have in your iPhone, then the instruments, they can reconnect and actually connect again. Or also, one measure would also, if this doesn't work, it's also a possibility to restart again your hearing instrument, and this you would do in the same way as we have seen in the previous slide with the iPhone. So either switch it on and off with the push buttons, put it in the charger if it's a rechargeable instrument, or open the battery door if it's a traditional hearing aids. Or if all this does not work, you always have the possibility to close the Philips HearLink 2 app and then also to start it again. So this would be another possibility. And, if you have restarted the app again, then you can also repair the hearing instruments, and then the connection should be established again. So also, quite common are connectivity issues if multiple devices are used. So, which means, yes, my hearing aid works with my iPhone, but not with my iPad. Or my hearing aids are connected to my phone, but now I want to hear the sound from the tablet. So, when users connect to more than one device, their hearing aids, then issues with connection can arise. Because the hearing aids, they may pick up the audio from the device they are not using, and then they are actually not able to get the streaming from the device they want to use. So also here we have some very, very simple options in the iOS and in the Android menus, which we can double check. So in the iOS, if the user pairs their hearing aid with more than one device, the connection for the hearing aid automatically switches from one to the other device when the user does something that generates an audio signal on the other device, or when the user receives a phone call on the iPhone. Therefore, the Apple devices should have the handoff audio available if both devices are on iOS 16 or later, if both devices are actually signed into the same Apple ID, if both devices are on the same Wi-Fi network. So if these three requirements are given, then actually connection should work on both devices. Now, if the hearing aid user with an iOS audio hands-off feels that connection on the different devices is not working properly, then he should actually try and verify the connection in the audio hands-off. And there he can find the option in turn off control nearby devices and audio hands off. So this would be control nearby devices. So if control nearby devices, then the hearing aid user should verify that the other options or the other connections in the iPad are not connected. Then this way he can make sure that he will hear the phone call in the iPhone. Or, correct, in the audio handoff, actually, he can actually see which devices are actually connected, and then he should delete the ones he is not using right now. If the same issues arise with Android phone, so that also multiple devices are connected and the hearing aid user does not hear the sound where he wants to hear it, then actually the user should turn off Bluetooth on their other paired devices. If it is required for the user to be paired to more than one device, maybe the hearing aid user has a smartphone for private and smartphone for office use. So we do not recommend to remove the Bluetooth if the problem would arise on a Mac, because if you would turn off Bluetooth on a Mac computer, then it would also cut off all the other devices which have been paired, like mouse, keyboard. So, but for the phone or for a tablet, this trick or this tip actually works very well. So you can turn off TootBlues, yes, on the other devices, and you can make sure that you remove all the devices which are not needed at this moment, and then you see all the other devices you would see in the menu up here. So switch them off, disable them, and then make sure that only the hearing instruments are connected, and then you would also hear the audio signal. So we recommend for a really trouble-free connection on the smartphone, ideally the smartphone or the hearing instruments are only paired to one device, which is the smartphone. Then there may be some other issues that, yes, you don't hear the sound where you want to hear it. You would like to hear it on the phone, but then you hear it on the tablet. So very, very likely complaint can be, my hearing aids are connected, but the sound is coming out of my phone. So what's the purpose of having a hearing aid connected if I cannot hear the sound directly from the hearing aids? Or, yes, my hearing aids are connected and I have no sound at all. Also here, there is a menu in iOS and in Android, which helps us to solve these problems. And this menu is actually the audio routing. So in the audio routing menu, we can actually see, which menus are routed. So there can be the call audio, or there can be the media audio. So you can select the routing according to your preference for the media and for the audio, which means when listening to music and also when using the phone. So you can select the routing preference if you would like to have it automatic. Then it means the device which will be active will also receive the signal. Or you can select always hearing aids, then you would always get the sound directly into the hearing aids. We would recommend this option if the hearing aid user has only the smartphone connected to the hearing aid. Or you can also have never hearing aid if you would like to have the sound always directed to a tablet or to a Mac. So in this menu, this is the first way where you would check if the audio routing goes to the right connection. Now, if it happens you are already on the phone, you receive a phone call and you cannot hear it, which means check the audio routing during a call. Then what you can do, the call comes in, you tap on audio, and then you actually see the connections coming up. And then here you can select directly, immediately, if the sound should be transferred to the hearing instruments, to the speaker, or to the iPhone. So this is the option you can do right away when you are calling. Or another option, if no call is coming in, if you are playing music, if you are listening to music, then you can actually check this from the control center by just, swiping down from the top of the screen. And then you would see the media, which actually pops up, which is active. And again, you can select the routing, either iPhone or the hearing instrument. So in Android, the routing looks a bit different. If you are actually having a call, if you are doing a call, then again, here you see the call is coming in. And then again, when the call is coming in and you cannot hear, tap on audio and make sure that you are connected to the hearing instrument. You have the possibility also to select in Android phone between phone, speaker, or hearing instruments. And in iPhone, if you are using media, if you are listening to music, also the menu looks a little bit different. But you can also, swipe down from the top of the screen to access the menu. And then you will see the media which appears, what is actually active. And again, here you can select, between the hearing instruments or the iPhone. So this is where you can make the connection while you are listening to a media. Another issue which we hear commonly is actually the volume of the phone is too low. Whenever I receive a phone call, I can barely hear the voice. It's so soft, and every time I have to toggle up the volume maximum. Also here, there are a few solutions which we can recommend. For iOS, for iPhone, if you actually receive a call, again, a call is actually coming in, and then if you, first of all, of course, you must make sure again that the instruments are connected. Then you have different choices. You can actually increase or decrease the volume on the buttons of the side of the iPhone. And also make sure, that the hearing instruments are active and that they are not muted. But it's also possible that in the HearSuite software, under accessories, you do have a menu in the software which allows you to personalize the sound of incoming phone calls. You can balance the frequencies, but you can also adjust the volume in the software so that every time when a phone call gets in, the volume is automatically a bit louder. So for the hearing aid volume, there are various options in the iPhone and also in the software, which can help you to solve the issue. And on the Android phone, also, if the volume is too soft, first of all, confirm that the audio is routed to the hearing instruments if the call is coming in. And then also adjust the menu. First, try to adjust the volume on the buttons of the Android phone. Again, as I mentioned, make sure that it's not muted. And again, this option to personalize the sound of the smartphone is not only available for iPhone, but also for Android phones. So maybe you don't remember this, but it's a great option to personalize the sounds. So now that we know the most common reasons for Bluetooth connectivity issues. There are just a few tips and tricks which we can take into account actually to avoid these challenges or to combat these challenges. And I would like just to mention a few very, very simple points which we can look at to verify the connection. So first of all, there may be other Bluetooth-enabled devices in your home, office, or other environment. So because all these devices can cause poor connections, so try to keep them away. For instance, if you are working also in an office or in your clinic and you have various hearing instruments, maybe with Bluetooth active in your environment, because maybe you had fitted other instruments before, so keep the other Bluetooth devices away or switch them off as good as possible. So then all the devices which are not in use should be disconnected to also assure Bluetooth connectivity to the devices you want to use. What also Mariel mentioned, that the own body is the biggest obstacle for connectivity issues. So try to or tell the user that he should actually wear the hearing instruments close, or he should wear the iPhone close, or he should actually have the iPhone not too far away. Because yes, the human body has a lot of liquid, and if the signal has to cross the human body and the hearing aid user is maybe using his iPhone in the back pocket, this can also cause interference and the signal may not be transmitted properly. So for best connectivity experience, if you would like to have your iPhone in a pocket, use it in your shirt pocket or use it in the front pocket to make sure that the sound has not to cross your body, but that it can get the shortest possible distance. This is also a big trick to reassure that connectivity with hands-free calls can be maintained. And also we know that the environment can influence the signal transmission. Reflective surfaces can benefit from audio signal transmission. Mariel mentioned before that connectivity works best in a closed environment where the sound can be bounced off from the walls. Yes, so it may happen that if the user is outside, is walking in the street, that he may have some connectivity issues or maybe, sound issues, that the sound cannot be perceived as neatly as it can be perceived in a closed environment. So also there, sometimes it may be necessary to keep the smartphone also close to the hearing instruments to avoid interference and to avoid connectivity issues. And my last tip I would like to give you today is also, if you have a different Bluetooth device paired to the hearing instruments, then also make sure that the other devices are switched off. For example, you are driving in a car and maybe you have connected your hearing instrument to the Bluetooth car stereo and also to the smartphone. So now, what would you like to listen? Would you like to listen mainly to the stereo in the car, or maybe you have a GPS in the car, or would you mainly like to be alert if a hearing aid, if a phone call gets in? So also make sure you can prioritize the Bluetooth devices. So if maybe you want to focus on the GPS, then make sure that the hearing instrument is, that the Bluetooth between the smartphone and the hearing instrument is disabled. So then you can also make sure only have active the connection or the device where you would like to stream to. So I think with this, we have given you a nice number of tips and tricks, and I hope they were useful, probably not at right this moment, but if you think about it, yes, in future, you know where all the information is. And Mariel, she will also inform you now about some other resources, I think, which can be very helpful for you. Later on, we will check if there are some questions in the chat. But for the time being, I'm handing back to Mariel.
Thank you so much, Christina. So I took a look at the chat and no questions. And I know it's a lot of information, so that's to be expected. But thank you, Christina, for equipping us with essential knowledge on how to address these most common issues, because obviously we cannot talk about everything. And I hope that the next time you encounter your own client complaining about, their phones, their hearing aids, pairing, disconnecting, hopefully, you can face them now with a bit more confidence to help them solve their issues. And this takes time, I know, but as with everything, and since we are not only selling hearing aids, we are selling a complete solution, it's really worth to delve into and learn bit by bit with each different issues that we have. Okay, so we're going to talk about the connectivity resources. We offer quite a few number of resources to support you and also your client on your troubleshooting journey. And this includes on the left-hand side a guide for setting up and troubleshooting direct streaming on Android devices and also PCs with LE audio. We also have on the middle a guide for basic troubleshooting with connecting and pairing with smartphones. So there you have it. And on the right-hand side is are the slides, which we didn't include in today's presentation, but will be included in the handout. So one of the slides there, I put a picture of the Terminator because we know that sometimes we need some hardcore troubleshooting. So these are the steps you can follow in case all else fails and you really need to start from the start. So all of that will be in the handouts after this presentation. All right?
Just if you have questions later on, just don't hesitate to contact us. Wish you a good day, a good evening, wherever you are, and see you hopefully soon again.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Glad to have everyone with us. Thank you for deciding to attend today's session.